All right, welcome back to Boring Reviews. Nick here,
Gabe, the Night Watchman,
and we have just seen Animal last night. Here we are, the next morning, a little refreshed, got our thoughts together, and we're going to tell you all about it. Spoilers galore. So if you haven't seen it yet, don't watch any forward. If you care any more forward, if you care about the spoilers, if you don't, then just sit back and relax. And I want to start off right off the bat with kind of the elephant in the room. At least I feel like the elephant in the room.
Right.
I always look at the reviews of other people after I have my own thoughts figured out. They're not going to change my thoughts, this or that, but I'm just curious what other people think.
Right.
And I feel like, especially with Indian films, like there's such a huge fan base all over the world that you either love it or hate it. And those are the reviews right now. People are giving it either 5 stars or 1 star. They're absolutely loving it. It's a masterpiece. They're absolutely crushing it. And in my opinion, it's neither of those types of films. I'll get to my grade a little bit later after we share our thoughts. But it's kind of funny how people are just all about it, or people are so much against it.
Right. And you know, it's funny, I don't really like watching other reviews either. I give my own opinion. I could care less. 2 things I mentioned to you already, right, beforehand. I was like, man, this is Monsoon Shootout all again, right? I love that film. I did a review for Monsoon Shootout on the channel, and with Nazanin Siddiqui, it went nowhere. Apparently nobody liked this film. All right, whatever. You know what I mean? I could care less. I like what I like. Not everybody is going to like the same thing. But people that are giving it 1 star, stop it! Stop it! Is it a perfect film? No. But does it have... Dude, think about this. And what did I talk about? As a male moviegoer, what do I need? Gratuitous violence. We had it.
Check.
Acting. If you don't tell me... Forget about the pacing. Forget about the things you talk about. But if you don't tell me that the acting chops are out of this world for Ranbir Kapoor and... What's her name? The actress.
Rashmika Mandanna.
Rashmika... let me give you a list of 10 movies I've seen this year where the actors just went through the motions. That were absolute garbage. Bro, are you kidding? A 1 star? Come on. That's just people that are easily triggered. And I did watch one review where somebody was like, listen, he himself said, if you're easily triggered, don't watch this movie. Bottom line, because they did touch on some tough stuff there.
The filmmaker himself said it's toxic.
And that's okay. And if you're that kind of person that you're going to be triggered or offended by things he said, don't watch this film. Those aren't the issues I had with it, because realistically speaking, Hispanic households, just like Indian households, do have that contentious relationship, that father-son relationship that sometimes is very unhealthy. Let's just be candid. So those things don't bother me. Even the male dominance machismo thing that we saw happen, that still exists today. All right? I'm sorry, it is what it is. So to me, I'm even okay with that. I thought he was very progressive, actually, in the way that he would tell his sisters, no, you're better than this. You know what I mean? You're smart, you're beautiful, whatever. Stand up for yourself. That's actually very progressive, in my opinion.
Right.
So those things I'm cool with. The one thing I did go back after I thought about it, and we have our discussion on the drive home, was the pacing of the film. And you're right about that. It was clunky because I think it probably should have been stretched out into 2 films. And obviously, spoiler alert, there's going to be a part 2. So they could have done that. I think he had to rush something. And I know that the director directed this, edited it, and also...
co-wrote it.
And co-wrote it, right?
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake, and I'll tell you why. Guys, if it were up to me, the videos would be 2 hours long. Nick has to no, get up. If I'm on a video, you better believe he's in the chopping room editing floor. Oh man, I'm like, no,
Gabe is not algorithm friendly.
I'm not algorithm friendly. I'm not algorithm. Look at me. I'm still going off right now. He hasn't said a word for about 3, 4, 5 minutes. Guys, he should have let somebody else look at this and say, no, we really don't need this. Let's cut this part or whatever. Because I understand what his vision was, but he tried to pack so much in there to justify and even lay so many little Easter eggs for later off to pay on that it did mess up with the timing. But as far as I'm concerned, I love this film. I thought it was a masterpiece. I'm on one of those parts.
Masterpiece?
Out of the theater, I said what? I said, this is Pulp Fiction. Go back 1996 and see how many people said, oh, Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece. So a lot of people hated it. They were polarized. This Tarantino guy doesn't know what he's doing. Really? He doesn't know what he's doing? Matter of fact, even more recently, we went and saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. What did I say? This thing is awesome. Reviews. So a lot of people hated that film. The thing won an Oscar, okay? So I'm not saying my opinion is end all be all, but people that said a 1, Nick, come on, man.
It's out of control, and I appreciate your opinion. Everyone's got to have their own opinion. Let me talk about the things I liked about this film. Like you mentioned the acting. The acting by Ranbir Kapoor is one of the most, honestly, amazing acting performances. with the exception of one little scene at the very end. He's crying in his grandpa's shirt because of his back and forth. He told his dad the truth or whatever. And I know it's really nitpicky, but I didn't believe his crying, his sobbing. Other than that, his acting was absolutely on point. They did the whole de-aging, the airbrush or whatever it was when he's going with his sister because she's getting ragged at college. Yeah. And just the intensity that he delivers the entire time. Where he's a schoolboy going into a college. The college kids are calling him out. And he's like, okay, I'll be right back, sister. Stay right here. Comes back with the gun. And, I mean, he's just...
gangster.
He is... I've never seen Ranbir in this style. You don't see too many actors able to go full-fledged. And he's always usually the good guy, the hero, all that kind of stuff. His acting is absolutely... There's certain things that the best actors do where you can see it through their eyes. They are no longer themselves. They are that character. And you can see this with Ranbir. Absolutely impressed by him. You mentioned Rashmika. Her acting was absolutely fantastic as well. She was a great counterpart with him with a lot of scenes that involves their back and forth and their acting playing off one another. They really raised their levels. And the crazy thing about this film is I was surprised how much language was in the film. You don't hear too many F-bombs in an Indian film. There was a scene where she busts like 6 in like 5-minute span, but there's about 10 or 12. I was surprised by that, but I really, really like the acting. The action sequences, when you get to them, are absolutely phenomenal. They are picture perfect for me because it's that whole like underdog mentality. 1 versus 100. It was someone messed with my sister. All this kind of stuff. Oh, really? He becomes that hero. He doesn't put on a cape or anything, but he becomes that hero. And those scenes are awesome. Other things I liked, and this is a positive and a negative. There was this drumming all throughout the film in action sequences. All different types of drums. Maybe like some person kind of like belting out a certain note over and over. That really worked. The negative is throughout the film, it's just so noisy. I feel like the volume was ramped up more than usual, almost to the point where it hurts your ears. There's either music, songs going on while people are talking, like songs that have words, or there's instrumental or score, but it's the entire time. There's a few times where like your ears get a break and you feel like, oh, thank you so much. And then the drums start coming back again. So the sound choices were interesting. I liked the overall story. I'm going to give this a positive review. But let's talk about the pacing real quick. These are my thoughts. I feel like this film was originally easily a 6-hour film. You mentioned 2 films. I completely agree with you. And then I feel like the studio, the producers, they said, no, we're not doing 2. Oh, we are doing 2 parts. We're not doing 2 parts for this first part, so we got to cut it down. You want 3 hours, 20, that's the best we'll give you, but you got to figure it out. There's certain times in the movie, and it adds to the clunkiness, it adds to the pacing, but it also adds to confusion, where they mention things briefly that we didn't get, but for the story and the character development, we needed to see some of it. The whole U.S. thing, I understand they didn't have to show the U.S., but it sounded like there was a lot going on in the U.S. before he got called over. We didn't even, and I stepped out for 2 seconds, so you can correct me if I'm wrong to use the restroom, but we didn't get to see his reaction in the U.S. when something happened to his father, did we?
No, it was just...
And then he comes over, and that was a great scene when he goes there, right? And he does the whole choke out. That was awesome. And then they go back and tell you why. And that's, I walked in somewhere at that point, and I'm like, how come this guy is still alive? And you explain, no, they're going back now and explaining it.
Because the story is told non-linear. And that's why I also explained it, that it's a little bit like Pulp Fiction in that the story jumps all over the place. It gives you...
definitely not chronological.
So it's not chronological. You have to pay attention to it. But I love that sense of storytelling, because I'm like, wait, what just happened?
I didn't have a problem
to go
with
back.
that.
So I enjoyed that.
But with the clunky pacing and story, the storytelling was great. The pacing being off
and
editing exactly being off, it made it very, very confusing. There was other things that were mentioned very, very quickly, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? Let me go into the things that I hated, okay? There wasn't a lot, but there was a few things I absolutely hated. One, I don't understand why they did the whole Fat Thor thing in the middle of the film.
I do.
Okay? He gains the weight, whole bunch of pot belly or whatever, for like 20 minutes. His dad even mentions, and I get it, he's losing control. He's losing sense of himself. But then all of a sudden, the very next scene, he's walking around naked and he's jacked again. And his wife mentions, you starved yourself forever to do this? We didn't see any of that. We didn't see that struggle of him trying to get back into shape and this or that, because then he was just jacked. Veins were popping. I didn't understand it. Back to the pacing. I didn't like that kind of storytelling. I also didn't like the soap opera in the middle of the film.
Right.
Once we had this awesome shootout at the house, and yes, it was a little overdone, obviously, but we're going to talk about that in a second, which is why I'm okay with it. After that shootout at the house, it was so melodramatic for about 45 minutes, and it takes you out of it completely. And I get it. They're showing the aftermath of something like this. I do appreciate that he's not a superhero, that he can heal in 5 minutes and he can go back and fight some more. I mean, that almost killed him, and he was recovering for a long time. He had the catheter. I understand that, but the melodramatic portion of it, the storytelling, that style, was a little too much for me. Those are the two things that I hated the most. On top of, we have halfway through the movie, and now we're starting a whole different movie where we're introducing these cousins and the grandpa's third brother or whatever in their family, where it wasn't, and I get it, surprise factor, but it wasn't really mentioned at all. And now we got to do all this building up and going back, and we have the sisters and the wedding, and that was kind of pointless. And it was just, like you said, so much going on that it took me out of the film.
Here's what I'm going to say. I agree with you on 3 points. And I disagree with you on 3 points. The Fat Thor thing, I even said to you, I turned to you, hey, did he really gain the weight for the movie? He's like, no, that's a fat thing. No. But here's what it is. Whether it looked good or not, I thought it was believable enough to me where I had to ask you this. But if you've ever been an athlete and gotten injured, you know it takes a minute to come back and recuperate. And the dude got shot up. So if you've ever known anyone that's been in a hospital, first and foremost, if you're an athlete or you're yoked, you're going to lose all that muscle. And then you're in bed. There's no way to go out and work out. And you're gonna, you're gonna put on his weight. They even mentioned, he's taking all these steroids. Yeah, because he's probably trying to heal, and it takes a minute to get back. That journey is so tough back. So you're right. They cheated us by Fat Thor, and then boom, he's yoked. They didn't give us that montage, but then it goes back to the pacing. The montage was probably in there, and he was like, even I can't.
And I don't even need a montage. I just need a moment where you got to get your life back together and get yourself back in shape. Something like that.
So that I understand what you're saying. But that part of the movie, you needed it for this reason alone. That was probably some of his best acting in that movie. When he is going down that unhinged despair, I've done all this.
But we went for 45 minutes?
Maybe it was a little bit too long. Yeah. I see what you're saying. But that was also because he plays so many different roles in this movie. From that protective schoolboy to that obsessed kid with his father to now he's unhinged and he's convincing even the doctors, I'm fine because he's throwing levity into it. But no, he actually needed that psychologist in there. Because the dude is going, he's off the rocker. You cannot experience something that traumatic and just walk away from it. So I thought he played that so well. This guy was, again, a man possessed. He was unhinged. He did some of his best acting there. Going to that fight scene, I loved it. It was John Wick light in that it was a lot of practical effects, hand to hand. You could tell he was in the scenes doing it. Dude, it was awesome. And then the tank of death. It looked cool, but did we need it? All right, that was my thing. Yeah. Because if you're gonna bring that in, then you got to spend some more money on CGI, cousin. Because that was the one scene that bothered me. You gave me this more realistic John Wick style fighting scene,
axes, all that kind of stuff,
all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, brrr, and people are just flying. No, anyone who's ever shot a gun or been around firearms, I mean, we've had some experience before. My AR-15 will blow a hole in a refrigerator. It's not just bouncing off a dude. It's taking his arm off or wherever it hits. That's just real. And the guys were flying all over the place. No, they'd be Swiss cheese, period. Yeah. With that level of weaponry. So I thought that was a little bit of off. Spend some more money on that CGI, or just don't put that in there. That car. Even though it looked cool, I think that, and maybe it got left on the editing room floor. I don't know what it costs to see, the limbs come off and people be absolutely shredded to Swiss cheese. But that was the one that was why give me this believable fight scene and then again take it away with that one scene.
It does the cartoonish and then it does the practical, and it's mismatched.
Right.
About him as a character, the film is called Animal, right? So I have no problem that he is that anti-hero, that he is not the guy you want to root for. Him going to a school with a gun is not normal. I wish we would have had a little bit of the consequences besides his dad just yelling at him to make it a little more believable. But I don't think that's what this film is trying to be.
His dad get him out of the country. The only reason he's not in jail is because of how influential they're.
At least a conversation.
He smacked them, he yelled at him and disowned him. He sent him to a boarding school over that. Get out of that.
I understand, but at least hey, we got the cops at the door. I don't know. But my point is, with this guy, he's not someone that you want to model your raising of your kids after. He is a sociopath in every sense of the word. He believes that everything he does is justified. He thinks he's the smartest man in the room. He thinks he's the strongest man in the room. He thinks everything he does, no one understands the grand plan but him.
Right.
And I actually appreciated that because it's a layered character that's not just a, I'm a bad guy or a good guy or whatever. He actually believes in everything he's doing to the point where he corrects his father, who he's obsessed with, by the way, and saying, no, Dad, you don't understand.
Right.
I fully understand. And shame on you for not being there for your daughters when I had to be there.
Right.
He didn't see that his way of going about it was crazy. I didn't have a problem with that. I feel like a lot of people will because a lot of people expect their heroes to be the 100% good. And hanging out with you has taught me that it doesn't always have to be that. But I think that's established from the very, very beginning that this is not a guy you're going to model after. I liked how him and his wife, how she broke up her engagement because she was intoxicated by that alpha situation and the way he is. But you knew watching it, she's going to eventually regret that thing about him because it's not sustainable. So I don't think it was a huge mess. I hear that a lot too. And I don't want this review to be responsive to other people's reviews because everyone has their own opinion. I'm just sharing my own thoughts. I enjoyed the film. One thing I'll say about this is 3 hours, 20 minutes. I didn't feel 3 hours, 20 minutes. I felt maybe two and a half hours.
Right.
There are certain parts where you're just strapped in, you're enjoying the ride. There are certain parts that you do feel the runtime. I'm excited for the next one. There's going to be a next one. Animal Park, baby.
Stay through the post-credit scenes.
As John-like as it is, as cartoonish as it is, I don't care. I like what they set up. I like even Rambir's acting in that scene, for crying out loud. This guy, he makes you believe he's a younger guy. And last thing I want to say, I got to give like a round of applause for his hair game, his beard game. Did he not make you believe that he was going through different stages of life just from his appearance? And he was rocking it.
Dude, I mean, again, acting sometimes is in the delivery, but then acting is also just in the nuances. There's one character that gets such little screen time, but he was captivating every time he was there. And it wasn't the antagonist. That's one of my only complaints. They didn't give us enough time to breathe or really introduce that character, the main bad guy. Yeah. But his brother, the one that was the translator, like just his mannerisms. Like all I think,
grimy.
Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's not the delivery of the lines, but just his mannerisms, his drunken walk, that kind of acting that you do with your body was absolutely amazing. And this guy had that. Like his emotions, his words didn't matter. It's just the way he delivered it, his body. He was really good.
Real quick, the character's name was Abid, played by Saurabh Sachdeva.
Yes, and I mean, he was really good. So I enjoyed that. Again, to me, maybe because I've seen such crap movies this year, and man, going back to some of the years. Even Marvel. By the way, this is writing. Give us at least a full-fledged story. I'd rather have a lot more to digest than not enough. Just saying. Yeah. Just saying. But, dude, if my only issue with the movie is one fight scene and the fact that we didn't get enough of other characters because of editing or whatever, the clunkiness of the film, I'm going to take it. And, again, give me those actors that can, some of the best. Maybe because I'm a father that I've actually gone through this. And I know that your son is younger, but you've already experienced a little bit. There always is going to be that contention. Right. That's what he made me believe the most. Like as a father, I've also had that experience of, wow, I did fail my son. I might be working 2 jobs. I'm doing this on YouTube, doing everything. But how much is that taken away from being there for my son?
And what do they need? They just need you.
They just need you. Yeah. And that hit me hard, bro, to the point where I got choked up at one point about it. And if you haven't experienced it yet. Hopefully you don't. But I would say the majority of father-son relationships have that contention. Because if you're a father and your only focus is providing and being the patriarchal of the family, you're going to miss out on stuff. You are going to miss out on stuff. And no matter, your kids don't understand what you're doing, but and why you're missing out on those things. But you can't say it's not going to affect them. And then when that comes back to bite you later on in life, it's like, oh man, I did make mistakes. And even his father at the end kind of acknowledges that. I love the writing on this story. I could say too much about it. But again, Nick was going to have to be editing this thing and chopping it up forever. But guys, I mean, Nick, I'm going to tell you right now, love this film. I'm gonna give it an A+. I could care less. I don't care what anybody else thinks. Okay. A+, whatever.
I love it. I do love it.
Okay, A- because of this stupid machine gun. That thing kind of bothered me.
A+ might be a little too much. I'm gonna give it a C. I am. So 3 out of 5. You want to look at that way, 60%, whatever. Even though a C is 70%, I want to give it a C because it's a little above the 60%. I really enjoyed this film. If you know how Rotten Tomatoes works, which we're not on there, if it's 60% or higher, it's a positive. I'm giving it a positive rating. It wasn't a perfect film, but I enjoyed it a lot. And if for nothing else, I really value acting. So maybe that's why I even have it so high. I have not seen all of Rambert films. I've seen maybe 5 or 6 of them. This has got to be top 3 acting, if not the best actor or best acting performance from him I've ever seen. So if nothing else, if you value acting, you got to check it out just for that. Let us know what your thoughts are if you've actually seen it. If you haven't seen it, let us know what's holding you back, and maybe we can chat with you in the comments to kind of try to convince you, because we do think it's worth your time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and until next time.
We know all things.